November 12th, 2024, City of Idaho Springs work session. And this is really kind of a historic one for me and probably most of us in the room, as it is a joint session. And I just want you to know, we wanted everybody just to sit on the desks around the floor. There was no way to arrange it and make it work. So I hope you bear with us, but it's really nice to have everybody here. A matter of housekeeping, if there is anything that you would like to share, could be a resident or anything else that might be on your mind, we have a sign-up sheet. Everybody's entitled to 3 minutes of public comment. We have a really short regular work session before we go into the joint session. And we only have one thing on it tonight, and that is the Clear Creek Fire Authority, IGA. And I would open it up. We also have a highlighted red line version. That was the last version. There's not a great deal of changes, frankly, from the original IGA. And Andy, did you have anything to add to that Fire Authority IGA?
Well, we do have the Clear Creek Fire Authority represented here with the Chief Kelly Babian and Jeremy, the Assistant Chief. And this has been a long process, Mayor, that you and I have been involved in, along with our representatives, Mike Anderson and John Curtis, who represent the city on the board, on the Clear Creek Fire Authority board. And we've been at this for over a year, I believe, ever since the study was done by the consultant on the organizational analysis for the Clear Creek Fire Authority. And the goal was to, and the goal still, well, the goal was to get the agreement, the IGA, updated because it expires the end of this year. So the goal was to get the current intergovernmental agreement with the Emergency Services District, the Clear Creek County Emergency Services District, and the 4 municipalities to get that updated and effective in its new form as of January 1st. So we're on track to do that. The main purpose this evening was just to make council aware of a couple of the key updates, answer any questions, give council an update of what will be coming as far as some additional requests, and particularly with funding for next year, or maybe an ask next year for additional funding. So what's in the packet for consideration of document is the clean final version. Was the work of probably at least, I bet there are 15 or 20 meetings we had throughout this year. It's been a long process, a lot of hard work, a lot of discussion. We can highlight, if you like, or discuss a few of the key changes in the agreement, if you like. There's some that are not so substantive, but there are a few that were pretty significant. Do we want to talk about those maybe?
Yeah, you know, if it's all right with everybody, let's just spend a few minutes thumbing through it. On the first page. We don't really see any. Please stop me if somebody has a question as we're going through it. I'll give you a minute. I'm on page 2 right now. There's really nothing of any substance that have been changed. Third page, same.
One of the changes of note is the representation on the board of directors.
Yeah.
And there's a good bit of discussion about how to make sure that not only the municipalities were represented, but the more populated areas unincorporated. And what the change here that is proposed is that there be 3 additional board members that would be representing the eastern section, one the central section, like St. Mary's, and one the western section, unincorporated areas. So that's.
Yeah, and Andy is on page 4 into page 5.
Yes. So that's a under Clear Creek CCFA Board of Directors, that section.
Right. So far, anybody on council have any questions?
Kelly or Jeremy, if you have anything you want to add, feel free to chime in.
Andy, in the funding section,
Yep.
do you have, you said there could be some changes next year as far as the asks?
Sure.
What do you see as far as percentage changes from what we've been doing?
Well, the big change might be a request for a county sales tax to or focus on public safety. So part of it would be allocated to the fire authority, to the fire services.
And I would just add, if you look at their hotel locations, we are only funded about a third, some would say a fourth of what others are. So we are just woefully underfunded, and frankly, we have just been very lucky at dodging bullets and getting on things quickly. And that's why Andy brings up the fact that I think we're probably going to end up asking for some type of funds from the public, and it may take the form of a sales tax, but also additional somehow to bridge the gap, because we are way off.
They make our sales tax though very high.
Oh, I know.
Like our Idaho Springs, we're higher than anybody else.
Well, yeah, we're like tied with Winter Park and 10. Kelly, you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I could give you some quick information there. We are funded at the same mill levy rate as we were in 1989. Haven't had any increases. COVID has hit us very hard. We have lost our volunteer base for many different reasons that we could go into. Take a while, but we had to put on paid staff to make up for the loss of volunteers. So we currently have 2 people 24/7 that are here in Idaho Springs during the day, and 2 in Georgetown 24/7 because we have lodging there. We're currently doing a remodel on the firehouse so that this crew can stay here overnight. So what that has caused is that we are spending our reserve funds since 1920 or 2021. So we're deficit spending, and we're eating up our reserve funds. So if we don't get an increase in revenue, we will be essentially bankrupt in 2029. So something has to happen. We've been working on a survey to send out to the community to get a sense of how they feel about potential for a sales tax or a mill levy increase or a combination of both. Doing a sales tax would allow for us to pull money in from all of the visitors and travelers that go through here that require service at some level that don't pay into it. So doing that would be, we think, it's the most effective way to increase the funding to get back to where we're not deficit spending and we're slowly building that reserve fund back up for replacement of our our vehicles and stuff like that. Kind of a nutshell of what's going on there.
I just wanted to drill down on one aspect. Approximately what percentage of our calls are I-70 related?
About 30, actually,
It's kind of tight
about
around here.
30%. It's right at almost 30%.
And what is our reimbursement for that?
Whopping zero.
Yeah.
So that's US 6, US 40, and 70. Right at 30.5%.
Thank you.
There's no vehicle to get funding from that response type thing there, so.
Thank you very much. All right, I'm on page 6. At the bottom, we actually start with one. Slight change there on page 7. Parties will notify the authority in any reduction in their respective base contributions by October 30th of each year.
It's been agreed on by the other municipalities.
In the process. It's in the process. Every municipality had representatives at these ongoing meetings. So it took a long time, but we eventually got to consensus. So the expectation was it would go back to the individual municipalities and then be approved.
Also, last time, IGA, we did go a short time with no IGA, and nobody wants to repeat that ever again. So we're trying to get ahead of it. But as Andy said, I think the expectation is that all of the parties will agree to this. It is in the process right now. Page 8 is discussing the public safety tax. We have highlighted in red as a new item.
In light of what we just saw on the budget and on the ballot for the sheriff's department, section 34 with the pension, is that pension in line with the other fire districts around Colorado?
The pension for the fire authority?
Mhm.
Yes, it's the same organization that offers the pension, Fire and Police Pension Association. So, yes. Am I correct on that, Jeremy?
Yeah, so we're in support of that PPA, with a volunteer pension. So, any use volunteers. The career side has the same pension, which is actually what the sheriff's office, is on the ballot. For sheriff's office in the state of Colorado, we have PPA. ISPD, it's all the same pension plan. Elected workers.
And on page 10, you can see we've updated the terms of the agreement for this new IGA to start on December 31st, 2024. And it could continue until December 31st, 2029. And as you can see there at the bottom 10, of the agreement may be terminated earlier by written agreement of all. I personally found this very close to the last IGA. And as Andy said, we probably have had, I don't know, 16 meetings or something, trying to get a handle on how we can appropriately fund. As you can understand, there's been a lot of debate. So there's going to be a lot more to come. In the meantime, we do not want to run out of IGA to expire the operating. Uh,
So this group will continue to meet on occasion to talk about funding, what may be on a ballot measure next year. So this group will continue meeting, and also perhaps having more conversation about the how the fire service is structured. One of the recommendations in the organizational analysis was consideration of going to a fire district as opposed to a fire authority through an IGA. It would be a fire district, be countywide, except for the Evergreen section. So that also needs to be considered, whether that's the direction we want to go or not. So those are two big issues. The funding is probably the top one. The structure of the organization, whether that should change from what it is today, and then the ongoing discussion and review and of some of the other recommendations of organizational analysis, which the fire authority has been working ever since the report was issued.
Any member of council have any questions regarding the IGA?
Good.
So I guess the bottom line is that we do need to get this IGA, this revised IGA adopted before the end of the year and make sure we have it in place, that it's effective in the new year. And adopting this tonight will give Idaho Springs approval of that IGA. And then again, there'll be more discussions about.
This is more of a stopgap
Exactly right.
versus
Exactly right.
actual,
Oh, yeah.
this is the full-on.
You're spot on. And basically, we will need to have more discussion about the funding because that is a huge.
Excellent.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Nick, did you have anything to add? Okay.
No.
Thank you, sir. All right. Well, then, we will move on to the other matter tonight. And welcome so much, Planning Commission folks. Thank you for coming in. Staff has been working on the extended stay. Well, tonight, first time in Iowa, we're having a joint meeting. Also invited, extended stay business owners and residents that may be affected by this. So we may hear some comments later as part of that. And Andy or Dylan, would you like to kick this off?
Sure. I was going to give just a very brief background of how we've gotten here tonight and then talk through, I guess, the reasons why we're all here. So, as the mayor mentioned, these regulations have been discussed for several years. Jeremy said earlier, it might have been up to 5 years ago that they started to be talked about. There's a couple of starts and stops throughout the process, but Planning Commission has worked on this for quite a while this year to get it to a point to bring to council review. We, at second reading, as council certainly remembers, there's a few issues that made it so it wasn't ready to take action on, and that's when this was requested as a joint work session to work through those issues. But just to, and I'll kind of go into those. My staff report kind of laid out what I believe to be the major issues. But just to get to kind of why this has been discussed for so long, there's kind of two reasons. The first being that our code currently does not have a clear way of addressing sorts of uses where a building that's built for hotel and motel use, short-term transient stays, is instead used for longer-term 30-plus day stays. And the code doesn't really contemplate that because it states, any commercial building or buildings intended to be used for transient purposes, it would be a hotel or motel. Transient in our code in various places is discussed as fewer than 30 days. It also, so with that in mind, if you have something that was built as a lodging facility that's now being used for longer periods of time, that doesn't really fit cleanly within the code. The code also speaks to a dwelling unit as a place having one or more rooms, a single kitchen, at least one bathroom, cooking and sanitary, exclusively used for living, cooking, and sanitary purposes in a single family, two family, or multi-family dwelling or mixed use building. If someone's occupying a hotel room for more than 30 days, it may or may not have those facilities. It wouldn't necessarily meet the definition of a dwelling unit, and as such, perhaps it's not appropriate for long-term use. There's also questions on compliance with building codes, fire codes, safety concerns. And then the other major reason that has been brought up is health, safety, and welfare of residents of the city. Facilities, hopefully, if they are offering long-term lodging currently, already meet all these standards. And so this ordinance would be minor inconvenience, but lack of regulations on the topic, lack of inspections, lack of any sort of licensing or oversight has meant that we can't confirm that these health and safety requirements are being met. So that was, I believe, the impetus of why these regulations were put in place. The regulations would essentially function to do a few things, as everyone knows. It would create a licensing system that would require someone who wants to operate as extended stay, when they renew their business license, something like that, would submit paperwork to say, hey, I want to do 6 rooms as extended stay, or I want to do all my rooms as extended stay, or something to that effect. It would likely require a life safety inspection, which we do for any change of use in existing buildings around town. If you were going from a restaurant to a more intensive use, would likely require you as part of your new business license to get that life safety inspection. So that would be part of that as well. The other requirement would be providing minimum standards for facilities and what they have infrastructure wise, one of which is proposed in the ordinance that's included in this packet to be either individual kitchens in each room, which would be a sink, a fixed permanent cooking and a refrigerator are the main ones, or a communal kitchen in that same way. So that's the basics of it. I think everyone's read the ordinance and is relatively familiar with it, so I won't go into more depth unless there's questions and clarifications and things like that. But with that, I was just going to briefly talk about the issues. I don't know if we want to just go one and stop and talk about the next one, or if you want me to just kind of.
I think we all want to know how anything about this as well as council. So I would be item by item.
Perfect. Yep.
And I will also just say generally, some have felt that the way we have operated has worked okay, as if we had some type of a life safety inspection, we could have avoided a very difficult situation where there was a family living in some conditions. But you hadn't been inspected in that a very long time. And there are those that I did hear from that are very close to the edge, the edge of survival, living in their car kind of thing. And they are worried that for easy math, if someone had to remove a unit, let's say, ended up being at 10%, that maybe we're going to the kitchen, that owner may up the rent 10% on those who remain. So it's just one of the considerations that folks had worried about that I had heard from. And another proposal is to institute this on new entrants, new businesses into the market. Either who want to convert or who want to build some type of lodging facility, such as I think about what I was saying. So this is just input I've had from some in the community, and I would very much like to hear what others think about this. So we'll take it item by item. And if it's a council or planning, please feel free to chime in. Love to hear your thoughts on this.
Okay, perfect. So I think then, since you brought up that concern first already, I think that would be kind of a concern about the proposed ordinance and the minimum standards required, the costs associated with those items. That seems like a fair place to start since it's been teed up, and I think probably is the biggest discussion item of the night, because the other items were things like clarifying what types of properties this applies to and timelines for compliance, things like that, that perhaps are easier to discuss. Um, so yeah, with that, I mean, the mayor has kind of teed it up pretty nicely there, talking about the general concerns with requiring, these kind of additional infrastructure at a potential unit, and of course, that would only apply if you don't already have some sort of kitchen facility. I know there's a lot of hotels, that have kitchens associated with them. It's converting from a hotel use to this kind of residential sort of use. Perhaps they already have that, and so it would only apply if you're an operator who doesn't have that facility.
So the idea of it was, you guys came to us a few years ago to help with this. So we've been working on it. And what's happening in the community is they're not using the property for the right use. They're following under a hotel motel license. And hotel motel means nobody can stay over 29 days. So we looked at that and said, well, this isn't realistic. What should we call it so they can continue to let people stay there over their 20 years? And that's where we started talking to them about the extended stay, which means, yes, we could do that because we all know that it's needed in the community. And there are some very good operating businesses, and then there are some that need time. So this is generally how we look at it, and that's where we came up with they could do this. A lot of us felt that it was impossible to take a hotel room and put a kitchenette, all that stuff in, for being realistic. Actually, a lot of the questions were fire authority and stuff too, but what is doable? So we thought, well, that's impractical. You can't do that. You can't take the hotel owner and tell them to do that. So that's where a couple of the properties on their own did communal kitchens. So that's where we came up, okay, that's what we want, is if you can't do that to your rooms, extended stay means a person can stay there 30 days, 50 days, 100 days, whatever you as the property owner want to do. And that way the city is also aware that that hotel is operating as a hotel motel. I mean, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm just trying to. So that's where we came up with the communal kitchen, and it seemed to work. And we went round and round because some of our people, nope, they gotta make a kitchenette in the room. And we finally got through to all of us and compromised on their kitchen. We looked at it as the property and somebody in the long term. You're not operating as a hotel motel. So first of all, you shouldn't be doing it that way. You should be coming to the city and getting the change in use of your property. Because how come you're still listed as a hotel motel and you're not? When you're not going by the rules of hotel motel, you're having people over 29 days. So that's where we figured, okay, if they had to give up a room for a kitchen, it's keeping the extended stay, but it's not making them lose their change of use when they're doing something else. So if they don't want to do the community kitchen, don't want to do the kitchenettes, we gotta look at something, the city has to, because you're allowing a business to have a business license, run their business, and they haven't had to come to the city and have a change of use. You make a restaurant do it, you make a store do it, you make people do it. So that's generally where we're at. So that's where we came up with this. We thought it was all going fine. We had asked for a session because yes, we know there's concern. Yes, we all know people in the community that own some of these properties. If getting your input before we're sitting here now, when you guys are doing it on the second reading, would have been fabulous. But that's kind of where we're at. We're willing to compromise, but this is what you guys asked us to come up with, something that works. So that's kind of where we're at.
Also, I'm newish to, y'all know, but a lot of the conversation also revolved around the safety and health of the state, right? It wasn't just focused on the system side. So what do you need people live their comfort safely? You get a cook, and they all of that. And so in order for it to be an extended stay, people are saying, well, I'm not in this space. So the conversations for people are following the rules. No, it's also how do we make sure that people staying there are living to the best of their ability.
And the hotels that are doing the extended stay that don't have the kitchenettes and stuff, they might be running a perfectly good business, but they need to come to the city and have a change in use. And that's where they're the ones that are gonna get caught up in this, because what is the, and that was a discussion we had too, is there a third item that they're called? They're not called a hotel. They're not called the extended stay, but what do we want to call them? So at least for the record for the city and businesses, it's fair and equal and legit, the same thing that other businesses do. And we talked about that at our last work session, was it? When you guys had asked for this work session, that yes, we could come up with a third item, but we haven't been able to come up with what that is. We really haven't had to have the opportunity to brainstorm it, but tonight's a good night to think of it. I mean, you guys might have an idea of what the third thing could be that could make that property fall in that category. And it's not like you're wanting to kick anybody out of their places, but you also have some places maybe they should be kicked out because it isn't a good environment. It probably wouldn't pass some of the inspections we're talking about. So it's a way of kind of making property owners be responsible. The whole incident that started this, had that property owner been held responsible for taking care of his business, we might not even be sitting here because it would have never happened. You gotta put that responsibility on the property owner to go by what the rules are. So, no, the other thing was the date and stuff, which that's an easy.
You mentioned they would classify as one or the other, because I know some of the hotels are operating as a hotel and extended stay.
Yep, and that, we covered that too. That's, all they have to do is come in and say, get both, they're saying they're doing both, and that's fine. And that's what we said, Dylan said, you could maybe, you're gonna do 5 rooms and operate as a hotel, and 5 of your rooms are gonna be extended stay rooms. Yeah, it's, we're trying to make it for the best for the businesses that are already doing this, so they could keep doing it. We didn't think it was out of unrealistic to ask them to have a communal kitchen. And that could be, maybe we don't, but we also looked at it as, well, if people are staying there over 29 days, there was pretty strong feelings on, yes, you should have facilities.
I'd love to follow up on that exact point, if that's okay, Cindy.
Yeah.
I've talked to some of the residents in these exact locations, and yes, they love to be able to cook. I've certainly heard some folks in city government over the years, not recently, say the words, do those people really need this? And the answer is yes, and those people are us. Those are our citizens. And yeah, too. The cost issue is very difficult. I understand that. It's unfortunate that, I mean, actually, I really appreciate the business owners' novel approach to providing housing that's needed. It's to be applauded. Uh, Obviously, a use case that was needed in existing code. And so it's exactly right. Our goal path towards funds gap. Because the truth is that the options as the current code stands are continuing to allow an unregulated business to exist or shutting down and hand a lot of housing to people. And a lot of them are doing a good job. And a lot of them that maybe aren't doing a good job could be brought up to standards pretty easily. And so if there's some pain, it's really unfortunate. It's not good. But it's there's always pain when you address a situation that you know fester for a long time. And so we do have a solution in front of us. Issues like which exact properties is applied to, which dates should it happen. We started talking about this a long time ago, so the dates probably aren't that appropriate anymore. Those are easily addressed. Issues like, is this in general a good idea? Should they have kitchens or amenities at all? Those are also easy to address, and the answer is yes.
A little bit, I'm a tenant manager, I speak as a business owner that has one of these, plus I'm council. The direct result of this is higher rent. These people, and we have, since I left the red and I'm dealing with these people, I know the majority of our people are just having different comments and charge that to changes that affect their residents.
It's a very good point, and I'd respond to it with 2 points of my own. One is that it may incur high rents. It also may mean less profits for the owners, and it's their choice. It's our job as a community to decide on minimum standards of living in our community. If we want to be okay with borderline slums, then that's our decision. If we want to have a minimum standard, then people running these locations might have to take less profit. It's not a direct line between lower revenues and higher revenues. It's a choice that we make. My second point would be to ask you, as someone involved who will be affected by this financially, who's also a council member, how do you address that seeming conflict for yourself?
I can address that.
Well, we hold
My question was to Scott. I understand that it may not legally be a conflict of interest, but I'm just curious how you address that. It's not an accusation, it's a good question.
Back off the slum.
Oh,
That's
excuse
for
me.
certain people, not for all.
Yes, I want to make very clear that
Categorize all this same way.
I apologize. That was a mistake. I did not mean to do that. The situation that Cindy was talking to me years ago, that was adjacent to the word I used. It is, 100% was not meant. It is an exception out of it. And these standards are meant to raise those locations up to the good things that the place will do. And I truly apologize. I apologize. That was my mistake. Yes. How do you approach the challenge of having a financial stake in this regulation and having?
I think.
Okay, cool. Thank you for making that. Oh, great. I appreciate that. Right.
So I also need to state that we hold our tenants so that live there. And we do run a legitimate business. We provide them the best possible living that we can. We don't have kitchens. But if we put in a kitchen, our decision is to raise rent.
I understand that. That's a tough challenge. We're going to have to
And we
figure that out.
hold the tenants, and they do not want the kitchen.
Okay.
Well,
So if you were to speak to these residents that live there, this is something they want. And the government tries to do stuff, I realize, and I understand the meaning of this, better their route. But we have tenants that say they don't want that. So
Scott, can I ask, are you guys operating as a hotel motel?
Well, I don't think this would apply then to that.
Yeah.
That building.
Have you got, I mean,
yeah,
I I don't know, how is that listed on a business,
I read through
business head?
this. the gentleman was-
That's the
Yeah,
that's a
what is it?
question
That's the
mark
question.
that I have is so I think there's probably a couple of properties that this applies to. So it's an important question because I think as far as this particular property goes, folks who live there are probably very happy because it seems like it's pretty, very well run. But the question would be, if you're built at a short-term lodging facility, a hotel, whatever time, and then and this might be a legal question, on the spot, maybe if I have to, fine. But the question would be, you're built 60s or whatever time, and it's just rooms with a bathroom. There's no that's the only sink in the building, etc., or in the unit. And then you just switched, and now you're not offering any of these rooms short term anymore. Does that mean you're no longer this sort of facility, or does that mean that, or is the question more the building itself, the structure itself? Because the use has changed, and now we'd have a process where you should get a change of use before you go from commercial use to a residential use. A dwelling unit has pretty specific definitions. It requires kitchen, it requires minimum floor areas, it requires probably different building codes. So obviously this wouldn't apply to an apartment complex that's built today. But in the case of, we have a room, it's let's say 200 square feet or whatever the typical hotel room is. It has just a bathroom with the sink. There's no other sink. There's no, you just plug into a wall. Even if you just eliminate your short-term use, at what point, does that mean you're no longer subject to these regulations? And the only reason I would say that would be potentially a negative thing, in potential, in a lot of instances, that would not be an issue. But I could see if someone said, well, you know what, I want to rent out most of my rooms long term, but I still seasonally do a few that are short term and things like that. You might just say, well, all right, well, I don't want to have to comply with any regulations or build a kitchen or be licensed or go through inspection. So I'll just stop short term renting and now I'll just rent all long term. So I think that would be the question is, would this apply, a particular building might not have had a short-term rental in 30 years, but it was still built for that purpose. And so it likely meets the code for that purpose. And so if they're being used long-term, do they need to meet residential requirements for dwelling in it? Or is there another way that it could be classified? Because I don't know, I could be wrong. I don't know, maybe if you'd have a different view, but I don't know how they would otherwise fit in our codes.
Let me just kind of limit the scope here a little bit. This ordinance, and you'll see it right here at the top of the proposed 21-35A1. Extended stay lodging means the renting of a room, unit, or other portion of a hotel or motel for a duration of a stay greater than 29 days. So this ordinance is really limited to hotels and motels, which per our code has a 3-sentence definition that I won't read the whole thing to you guys, but I will say that the last sentence of this definition at 2115 of the code, if you want to look for yourself, it says motels and hotels contain lobbies for guest check-in and on-site maintenance and management. So unless you have a lobby for guest check-in and on-site maintenance and management, which is like the most traditional, what makes a hotel a hotel, right? Unless those factors are present, then this ordinance doesn't apply to you. This other side of things, right, that's Dylan speaking to, this kind of unclassified use, that's a problem that isn't directly addressed in this. This ordinance was designed to address just those folks that are in a hotel or motel that have been living at the same hotel or motel for 6 months. You can try to expand the scope of this to this other use that we don't really define, but for purposes of this ordinance and what the licensing requirements would be and who would be getting enforced against, it would be a hotel or motel in the most traditional sense of the term.
And it takes years out of it. Do you use the office? Or if you put a kitchen out in here,
Oh, God, that is
I
it
mean,
doesn't have to be big. I mean, it's, we have
Well,
but that's
I
here
think
or there,
in
but
our case, and then a lot of cases with some of these properties, is that the infrastructure is so old that
That was-
the electrical won't even support. So not only do we have to create the space, we have to rebuild the infrastructure, which is very costly to support.
from the way,
As soon as you get the permits involved, the electrical inspection involved, everything.
from the way Nick
And
just,
that's really part of the increase in cost.
the way Nick just described this just now, it, to me, listening to it worded that way, takes stores out of this.
Possibly.
Yeah, but
Possibly.
my question still is, do you have a business license for operation there? So what's the business license listed as? That to me would be the question. If it is a hotel motel, then there's where the
So
issue
it's a
is,
tricky
unless
one.
you
I
get
mean,
that
it seems
changed.
like a tricky line.
Yeah,
Just to speak to Kent, because I agree with you, it's the choice of the business owner to decide how much profitability, how much they charge for units, that's all a decision. But we have maintained our rents at one of the lowest in town, and I can tell you that this type of house, there's definitely need for transient workers that come through the area that they don't want it.
So if your folks don't have a kitchen, I think you have some of the college things, so they have it for those clients. Again,
There's,
it's still stretching your electric system. Like that
Yes.
to me also is a problem. If someone has hot plate, which are efficiently very involved in electric and they've got a fridge in there and this and that, are they, I mean, that is
they're
also a
limited,
potential.
they're limited to what they can bring in, or,
But if you could have a fire happen,
and
you
we,
folks are bringing stuff in.
and another thing I can speak of is we do an inspection every 6 months. We inspect every year. I don't know if all operators do that, but they inspect their own. And
no, I mean, it sounds like from the way Nick said it, doors would be taken out of the picture. I
But
think
that also means we get a third, like we get a third.
well, I think the way the wording of it takes it out of there, that would be up to the city staff if they can differentiate it where they're not in a conflict trying to explain to somebody the intent of it, whether you want a definition or something of it, because that's the hard part too. You know, somebody comes into the city, well, I'm gonna do this, and they don't, what are we calling it? It's not a hotel, motel, extended stay, and it's not an apartment dwelling or a dwelling. What is it? Are
Yeah,
we gonna have people come in and build those things? No, it's a change in use of a property that's existing. And by no means do we want to get rid of any of that. We just wanted to make the property owners accountable and have something. And then you get the places that are operating as a hotel and the other. I have to say, and being involved with some of them, with employment and stuff, for the properties that are used, they've already done this. They've already put the community kitchens in. They do the extended stay, so they're already doing what we came up with. And they did it on their own because they are having extended stay and realized that yes, we needed the community kitchen. And they don't want hot plates in
I'll
the
speak
rooms
to that a
and
little bit too.
popcorn makers and
Chuck had
stuff.
mentioned something that I never thought of is when an operator decides to put a remodel or a certain amount of work into their property, that could be a point where you ask them to do that work. I think I know a couple of properties that you're talking about. And a new owner came in and decided they were gonna put money in improvements in the property. And I can speak to ourselves so that I've ran numbers, and to do some of these, I'm gonna have to raise rents. Well, even with rent raises of like $500 a month or something, it still doesn't make sense sometimes. So it's hard to make sense of it financially and still try to keep rents to like, I consider us low income housing without a kitchen.
Yeah, see, and you
Unfortunately.
referred to yours as a rental, and this was, the intent of the extended stays is, and it's the students that come in. It's the transient workers that come in that might be working for CDOT, and they give them a place to live for 6 months.
But that's not the only folks in there. I mean, there
No,
are people
no,
who live
but
there for
that's-
years and years. There's
right.
families of 8 in one hotel room.
Right,
This
but
happened
that's,
right now
that's
tonight.
the ones that we're trying to get a handle on and get fixed or changed, or so the city's aware that it is a change in use, it's not a hotel motel extended stay property.
Yeah, it's somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But like the Kent's statement right there, was there any consideration on how many people are in? I mean, there's regulations for occupancy, and that's kind of a problem too.
That's why the
Well-
letter went out and all that, that's where that step came in.
Well,
was to
and
make people aware.
we did
We just have that.
we approved the other ordinance by state law saying that we cannot regulate dwelling units based or occupancy based on familial ties, but you can regulate based on building code, which I'm not a building official, but building has said that if you have a bedroom, minimum size for one person is 70 square feet, additional people is 50 square feet per additional occupant. And so having a licensing registration sort of system for these spaces at the bare minimum, we'll get to that because if we're requiring inspections every year or 2 years or 6 months or whatever to that effect, they can come in and say, well, you can't have 4 bunk beds in a 120 square foot space because building code only allows up to 100, 2 people in that size space. And so that would get at one issue, certain.
And I think when you speak of the communal kitchen, I've heard things like there may be over occupancy in a small room, like.
And we addressed that
The
too.
transient workers.
Yeah.
come in.
And that's where, it's a tough one too, because there is no money hardship. And that's a tough one, but these properties did put the communal kitchens in.
And I've
We've
considered
gone round and
I've
round with
considered the
this.
model of bringing in the transient workers for the communal kitchen and the numbers get better. But then I'm taking housing away
Yeah.
from some of these
Yeah.
restaurant workers
Yeah.
or whatever that have lower income jobs.
And what those properties have done is made housing that wouldn't be here either, because you wouldn't have it without them doing it. And then the ones that do the dual. I think sticking with the communal kitchen is the better idea for the bigger properties. Like we said, yours doesn't fall under it. The other one that I can think of, I guess it would be, what is the license? I mean, that's the main thing, is because they've taken this property and changed the use of it, where if you did that with any other property in town or a business, you would have to come before planning and council and submit everything to get a change in use. And it's like, we have chosen just to ignore this.
And the truth is if any other business use operated unregulated outside of their use for years and
You
years,
guys feel
we wouldn't be discussing how to make it cost effective for them. We'd be discussing what and how many fines they owe. And it's not a threat or anything. My point is just that there's already a heck of a lot of compromise into this. A lot. And you're talking.
But
It's
I'm
not an
reading
easy
through
issue.
this document, it says the key reasons to adopt the ordinance were health, safety, and welfare. I would argue that health and safety remain a big concern. Welfare to me means that I'm raising rents that a resident can't afford, and that person has very limited options. Very limited.
I would like to share with all respect. I feel very uncomfortable discussing
the situation with your property specifically, because for starters, make this confirmed and clarified that we're talking about hotels, motels. And you don't even know what your property is, even though you're dwelling units. So I feel like maybe you guys have to, you and the city have to figure out what the situation legally there, and then we can talk about that. Because we can't be stopping this from happening when yours is not even that.
I agree with you, and I just want you to know, I have really kept my mouth shut. I was taking all of this in. But it was obvious to me, we're gonna have to come up as a city with another classification. So the hotel motel, and I'm glad Nick weighed in. Obviously, is not going to be Scott's operation. We're gonna have to come up with something different as a city. Moving forward with hotel motel, I really appreciate all of the work that you've done on this. And I am delighted that, and I do know some operators have already put in piano kitchens. I think it might be a hardship on some existing hotel motels to meet the existing timeline. But I think we can adjust that. We don't want to displace people or make them business, but I'm just throwing it out there hypothetically. If we gave a full year to bring the property in compliance, if they have, say, both long-term tenants and nightly tenants, obviously they can make accommodations within a year to have modified at least one room into a community kitchen. And again, I'm just throwing it out there as an example. Maybe instead of taking effect January 1st, 2025, maybe it takes effect January 1st, 2026. But that would address the hotel motel. Your point, well taken. The city needs to do some work on this other, whatever we're going to call it. But Scott's property is an example of whatever we're going to call this property.
So based on the hotel issue, I know with short-term rentals that we have the big regulations that get loosely regulated. But my concern is how we should have staff and who is that ordinance person? How do we schedule these? Just how do we manage this in school if it were to pass, and how do we manage that?
Well, I think the easiest way to do it would be if it was a January 1st date that aligns with business license renewals, it would just be an additional form. And you submit the floor plan showing here's where the rooms are and here's that are designated as a stay, or it's the whole facility or what have you. So as far as submitting that, it would be just as easy as any other business license application. As with any other like a change of use, we would require you to do a life safety inspection, which is with the building inspector to make sure that it meets minimum health and safety requirements. It's pretty standard when there's changes of use. As far as I know, it wouldn't require you to upgrade your entire facility. They just want it to be like not actively a health hazard or an electrical issue that's going to cause a short to the plug and things like that, as opposed to, hey, you have to redo your whole electric because it doesn't meet current code. And so that would just be part of that licensing process as well.
That's what we figured too, is yes, you don't want to burden everybody, and doing it with the licensing system. It's a benefit to the city and the staff for them to know what properties are doing. That's the biggest thing is what type of business is being run.
And these types of costs, as far from the city side of cost and enforcement and stuff, it's cheaper to process forms and inspect a location than to send police and EMS. And 100%, it's not everyone. The worst offenders were the ones that we were concerned about the most.
is why I see not every.
And cost wise, like typically a business license application fee is $75. A life safety inspection, I believe, is also $75. So I would expect like the additional cost per year would be something like $75 to $150.
Well, life safety would include the fire, right? And the fire first,
That would probably make sense. Yeah, there's yeah.
And you do the other part of the building department, or the building department. With that, but completely one cover vehicle access for fire inspections and then have for electric inspection. So we're having them come along with us for fire inspection. We're gonna be able to find more things. That one is the first group. And I would think that if you could possibly define those requirements, because if they get somebody over buildings, it's like with our historical buildings, they don't need transport. But you can go in this unit. There's
It was designed to keep it as simple as possible and to make it safer. And like, that said, you can take a room and very aware of this. There's 4 bunk beds in a room. And if it takes that inspection to then go, whoa, okay, 8 people in a room and how many outlets and stuff like that, it's a good thing. The last thing you want is something burning down and the city is responsible for not enforcing its own things. You're operating as an extended stay at a hotel motel license. Who becomes liable? To me, the city does, because the fire broke out and what happened, and we chose to ignore it and not enforce our own.
You can speak to that. I think it would be hard to put those completely liable, but the operator would be hugely liable.
Yes.
And I think with the student there, that we all are concerned with life safety. That should be a very big.
So it sounds like we can move forward with this. I mean, the date thing, we all said, yeah, yes. And like I said, we're looking at compromise and stuff. It doesn't sound like, if we're in the kitchen, it sounds like everybody's kind of in agreement with that, but that's not the extreme. And, places that are doing it and operating as hotel motels, is it a huge cost to them to do that, really? Not compared to that business that's maybe what the others are doing that don't fall into this, where it's not as green. But to take a room or a space and do a communal kitchen. I think when you're running the extended stay under hotel motel isn't an- too far of a reach to have the property industry.
And the question about rent costs and profitability of the business costs versus minimum standards. I mean, this is the tough rubber meets the road of like housing regulations. I mean, if we follow that line of argument to its logical conclusion, it's to leave things locally underregulated in the interest of the lowest rents possible. And I just don't think that that's a sustainable way to approach the housing crisis. I mean, rents are too high. That is a problem. It's unfortunate that this may raise some rents for some people that are currently living in places that are illegal for them.
And I would argue a little bit that we're in a society where people can't support their
We need to find that balance.
Yeah, balance both.
And that's why we backed away from saying there needs to be a kitchen or things in every room to some of the things that people have done. And if there's more nuance on the specific regulations to be found, then that makes sense. But let's not let it perfect. But have some easy adjustments to this that we made.
didn't want, I'm. Here, this is only privacy businesses, having this in house. I don't wanna see a grandfather law.
Agreed.
You know, I think it's their category also addressed, because I do agree that people that are on long-term, residency, because you were designed for initially, is a good thing, if you do have housing processing, there's no way of getting out of it. But I also think there are other things, and I think when you talk with someone like Scott's, are there ways that we can say, okay, Scott allows, a hot plate and a fridge and does inspections and can do it. I would like to say with the dates, I would like to see this go to effect January 1, if people have a year to comply. I don't wanna kick this can down the road. I was on the planning commission for a while, and this was 2 years ago, and it was a discussion then, 3 years ago.
21.
Yeah, so this is something that was a long time coming. I don't see our long extended stay going away as part of our housing, I don't think that's going to change. So, but I think we want to go in here to get all their to order, you know how to discuss this. And you know, the other place, you know how to collect this, okay? It's been a year to get it compliance.
Sounds like what this would do is to be expired with the business license.
I would just push back a little on starting it without actually, like, because if you ask to start on January 1st, 2026 to get a license, that means you have to be in compliance. So I think it would kind of complicate things enforcement wise if you move people get a license with requirements that they don't actually have to follow.
To be clear, and as written before, if it's that you have to apply by January 1st, compliance by March or something. Is that not kind of meant kind of the same thing?
Yeah, this was correct. Yeah, this offered a little bit more of a buffer because you had until January 1st of 25 to file an application, and then by March 1st to obtain a license. Processing time plus maybe you have a few more ducks to get.
Right. Do the same definition with the March.
Yeah, for 26.
But the same set.
Yeah.
You said.
No, yeah.
I also want to applaud the flexibility here, because I am aware of some hotels on, Colfax that had to get up 1/3 of the heat. So they do that picture. And they never do it. And what they did is, they took 3 rooms, and that middle room was converted into the kitchen, so 2 bedrooms went up, and, they lost a third of the units, bringing it into compliance. It seems like, planning had looked at this, and, bring 1 unit out of 10 or 15 or 20 into a kitchen, to me, it seems very reasonable. And, it seems like there's plenty of time here to line up a contractor, get it done. If you want to operate as a hotel, it's, I think.
And Mayor, I'll just kind of add on because I think you're getting there. If you didn't want to have to do this, all you would have to do as a hotel or motel is just not have people stay for longer than 30 days.
Right.
You don't have to really do any of this if you just limited to
Exactly.
transient stays. Well, I think the direction is to just change these 2025 dates to 2026. So it's you have all of next year to get your issues fixed or decide if you want to go back to just short-term lodging. And then on January 1st of 26, get your license application.
and then by March 1st, issue your license essentially of 26.
One of the things too is we don't use the word short. To, because we didn't want it, people start thinking, oh, wait a minute, I can do short term
Oh,
and
yeah.
start playing that game.
Gotcha.
So, yeah, so, but saying
Short term is Airbnb, lodging
Yeah,
is just a
it's-
hotel, extended
Yeah.
stay lodging is
You're
this.
all different.
It gets so complicated.
All right, as we go through, Dylan, anything else there causing heartburn?
I think we covered all of the, I mean, it sounds like hearing from folks in the room that we've covered the major concerns and we're generally on board with the direction forward. Does that sound right with this particular ordinance, but that potentially more work needs to be done on?
Yeah, definitely more work for the city. Obviously, we're gonna have to create some definition, something that's not a hotel.
Right. Yeah. Because I think, you know, and this can be a future conversation as we get into housing more broadly, which is a topic that we're going to start discussing with Planning Commission in depth and then come to council to say, hey, here's, you know, because we got to, you know, this is kind of a change of subject, but we'll get. But essentially, you know, we got like this IHOP grant that said, here's a bunch of recommendations for housing to improve housing stock, bring more options to people, et cetera. We're going to start working on that. And this part of that could be part of the suite of things that are addressed and brought forward because our current housing standards are pretty strict. You know, there's minimum standards for an efficiency unit of something like I think it's 300 or 400 square feet, you know, minimum requirements for kitchens and things like that. And so in today's climate, there's probably solutions to that sort of housing that people are trying all over the place that don't fit into those really rigid confines. And so when we talk about this other category, if you looked and said, hey, someone wants to convert today to this other, it probably wouldn't meet zoning because the rooms are too small and there's not, like, it wouldn't meet the definition of dwelling unit. It doesn't meet anything in our code. We couldn't bring it into that, you know, that use, I guess. You'd need a conditional use permit or something like that. So there is room to say, well, you know, what if someone wants to do dorm style housing or something where it's like, hey, you basically do get a bunk bed and then there's a shared bathroom at the end of the hall and there's a shared kitchen over here and there's amenity space and whatnot. We don't really have a way to build that right now, but that's something that people around the country are building for, you know, new people in town or people on transitionary need for housing, things like that. And it's worked in a lot of ski towns that I know of. So I think that could fit nicely into that conversation. So. Well, and what
I don't like that. Because it'd be nice if they're knowing that when they get their license this year, that this is, you have to meet this deadline closer, I agree, than a year, because you go into the summer to where that's a good time for them to be able to, if it's to upgrade that plug. I mean, what does it take for a stove? I mean,
Well, I've been to the building a lot.
Does it really?
I guess I would say this. I would say that we changed the multiply on this construction process. It's kind of kind of local education on March 1st. I think if you're March 1st, they have to apply and start that process, like taking inspection, fire inspection, all of that. I mean, but that could be really quick, but that could be a long 6-month process depending on what they have to do from start perspective. With the whole intent of them being in compliance and receiving the license in January 1, 2024. It's going to take them a year to, sometimes it can take them a year to get this figured out. There are a few exceptions that are awesome. Stuff every building. I think it is
development, it's been construction. The process, the permitting process, all that, getting contractors. That's another tough one. So I think starting the process March first, that's an intent, makes sense.
So not counting business license, and we can continue this in six. This is what you have to do.
So in January, normal 2024, change of use of business license, you are being involved. It shouldn't be like, oh, you're going to fix this, I want to change it. You must do this stuff. If this business model works for them currently, they feel it's something they want to do. All right, some may.
I think that also puts in the city where you can figure out how to enforce this, you know, so that on January first, 2026, they report to the public, so how do we continue to enforce that?
Well, that's exactly that. Well, that's the basis of the conversation with everybody. Let's be honest, the lack of enforcement in our history has resulted in what we're talking about today. So no matter what, the city has to do the enforcement. And some capacity beyond what the current is.
I'm only thinking there's one property out there that hasn't done it.
I think there's,
There's only one that I can think of, maybe two, but
well, one of these, not very many.
no, it's not. And the ones that did do it, I don't know if it was that difficult for them to do, but they haven't been inspected.
It's interesting to see how this process works. We do have a lot of construction in town and business where they're heavily invested in improving the conditions in which their business is run, the amenities, the electrical. It's been pretty remarkable over the last 18 months or so. The investment, I think that'll continue. It's just a matter of how do we regulate it.
Right. Well, it seems like Jeremy's suggestion seems very reasonable to me. Everybody live with that?
I have one question about it. Let's say that someone, because I'll send out to everyone that I sent out the notice to for this meeting. I'll say, hey, this passed. Here's the rule you have to comply by. Talk to me. Let's get it in by March. Let's say someone doesn't get it in by March 1st. What does that mean for? That means they couldn't get a business license for it in 2026. They'd have to push it to 2027, or let's
I would
say.
say yes.
Yes.
I think there's a deadline to this process. You want to be in the process, or you don't.
Sure.
Then we did this decision, because otherwise we do allow for long-term non-compliance with past orders. If we do pass this, we allow an avenue for them to be in non-compliance for unforeseen duration.
Right.
So,
Now, let's say so then going forward, let's say it passes and then we get to 2026 and everyone who's currently doing it has applied and they're meeting compliance, and we have someone new who comes in and says, hey, I want to do, they come in like September of next year and they say, hey, I only do short-term stay with commercial business, but I want to do these 2 units, but it's September 1st. I missed the deadline. They would have to also, I guess.
well, you could extend the deadline, grace period to them of some sort, right? I think the deadline is to roll this out. That's how I envision it. I think you could put something in this, in how we regulate it. If I apply on September 1st, essentially to do this, I have that's my 9-month timer, right? And I have 9 months from the day I apply to be in compliance. Before I don't like to do. That seems reasonable.
It seems overly complicated.
That would only be for a new operator. Yeah, any new operator.
This is.
Why don't we go with the January 1st? They have to, so get started with the business license. And it has to be complied to by, say, June 1st, say July 1st. Or the city gives them an extension until September 30th.
That's fair.
And leave it up to staff to be able to say, okay, this person is working on it, but you said maybe it's taking too long, the construction costs or something. Like I said, I think we're only talking about and they're either gonna wanna do it or not do it.
Yeah, and also because a lot of these businesses already have contracts that are illegal right now. So if we can be legal sooner than later, I think it'd be better.
Yeah, I can't argue against getting them compliant sooner rather than later. Our best interest.
So maybe going back to the January 1st and then June 1st, July 1st, and then up to the city to, if they want to extend it
Can
to
extend
December
as
first.
needed.
But also, I think that's a good point that this means that the businesses have to make that decision by then. Because
We can start doing it north for another year.
The only other question I'll have on that before we establish a date is the next steps, because we've gone through first read. It sounds like the only change might be to these dates. So do we think we need to go back for a recommendation from planning commission,
Second
or we can
reading
just
with
go
the
back
changes
to
in the
second?
dates.
Okay, so then that would be relatively quick. I was
Yeah.
thinking if we were gonna have to wait till sometime in December, then we probably don't have time to.
So I'm clear though. So we're back now to you have until January 1st, 2025 to file your application. And you have until July 1st, 25 to obtain a license, which period may be extended till December 31st for good cause or some language we'll make up.
Yeah, that's my,
Okay.
So in any way, shape, or form, it's all.
Got it.
And not to throw another wrench in, but just for clarification, new businesses after all of these days, just like any business at that point, you want to open your doors, you're in compliance first. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yes.
Right on.
This only applies to this deadline period only applied to existing hotels offering extended stay lodging.
Still, are you comfortable with the expression? To the end of the year?
Yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. For things like, well, have you engaged a contractor? What are the reasons for the holdup? If it's a legitimate reason, not besides I just want to put it off,
Yeah.
then that's would be reasonable. And business licenses, of course, go to Wonder. So Wonder and I, who I don't think is in here yet, but we're working consultation with that. For these, let's say, dozen or less businesses that operate lodging at the moment. Maybe there's more, give or take. That's not that unreasonable of an amount of an additional work for when it's only a handful of properties overall.
With this third resolution, you're going to go thing and then come to us? That also is something.
There's a whole new thing.
Yeah.
Probably. I mean, like I said, I was hoping somebody would come up with a word coming to this meeting, so say, hey, we're kind of already thinking this is the direction to go with this, because when.
We would have been here till tomorrow.
Work, or you don't have us to bring that framework.
And if somebody has some input, stop now. Come to our work session with us.
yeah, Josh, go ahead.
Real quick, the fourth category, how can this start in 45 days when that category is not chosen?
But we're not, we're
There
not
wouldn't be
doing
any
that right.
regulations
We're not doing
on that.
Okay, I think this third category is an efficiency studio apartment that doesn't meet the square footage. So maybe that just needs to be adjusted, the square footage, instead of creating a whole. Does anyone else?
That's a great idea. Simpler the better, perhaps.
And a
Some
lot-
of these are certainly a good thing to talk about.
And a lot of the square footage was discussed where we kept running into a wall, is where it would have been great to have Jeremy there, is what is allowable in an apartment or an efficiency apartment. What's allowable for fire.
The issue you talked about, that was a family of 5 with a baby on the way that was in one unit, and that was worse than a slum. I agree 100% that was unconscionable. I know communal kitchen would help that, but for inspections all day long would help that.
I think there's something to be said for that. Like, a 400 is the limit for our studio apartments. If there's something for our studio efficiency, or you know, micro studio or something. So as a studio efficiency would suggest,
Yeah.
a
I
kitchen,
think so.
but
But
a micro efficiency
I
would
don't
say.
think we allow efficient units.
Micros
That's
are
right.
like my.
Kelly?
Yeah.
It's all first by building code.
We talked
And you,
about that.
then you probably should be involved in
Just
the
a-
discussion. Because if you look back at the history of every one of these facilities, were built and approved in overnight stay.
We
People
never use that.
driving down the highway or
We
stay.
define it. But it
And now
doesn't
we
meet
got
that
four
definition. Since we
Every
don't
one
allow
of those buildings is building based on the code, the building and code, and zoning as well.
On current codes or
Well, even going back, as far as I know, it's going back into the seventies. They were built for two people, room, for an overnight stay. And so you're really seeing a change of by, and not really accomplishing change of use like you would with other businesses. So there's a compromise there that you have to make. But if any of these buildings were built now, they would all require a kitchenette and a sprinkler system, an alarm system, more significant separation between units, and ground fault circuits, on and on.
The square footage also addresses the safety and what we're trying to get away from with living conditions being so terrible. Because like our unit, for example, with one person in there, plenty of room. Be happy with it all day long. If there's a family of five in there, it's dangerous.
And I'd like to say I applaud the planning department for trying to work through this. I truly believe we have a housing problem. I think we all agree with that. So trying to be lenient and trying to come up with solutions without taking a roof above somebody's head is really a difficult thing right now.
And that's exactly what we're trying to accomplish. And thank all for your time tonight. And to your point about not wanting to push it out another year, I completely agree. And the realities of construction and stuff, I have experience in that too. And it's just how it is now. The delay happened in the years that it took us to get this done. It was a lot of work, don't get me wrong, but we also lollygagged. And that's just true. And I put it on myself. And it'll be better in the future.
I want to thank everybody for attending the work session. And for those that would like to make a public comment, I would just like for you to plan. Our regular meeting is scheduled at 7. It'll probably begin about 7:05. But public comment is towards the beginning of the meeting. I would say in the first 15, 18 minutes, we'll do public comment. Anyone that would like to speak to this would love to hear what you have to say. Please understand everybody is limited to 3 minutes. And normally there's no back and forth between council, so please don't think we're ignoring you. It's our time to be quiet and listen to what you have to say. So again, Planning Commission, thank you so much. Frankly, you probably saved us multiple meetings by you being here. I can't thank you enough. Have a good night. Thank you.
We should do it again.
Yeah.
Hey, Andy, would you mind, are you logged into your Zoom by any chance, just your account?
Am I logged in now?
Yeah.
No.
Would you mind logging in? Because last week when I was troubleshooting Zoom issues, I made you the account owner of the city Zoom because having John's email as the account holder doesn't really make sense. But I think that messed up the Zoom room because the Zoom room is under John's account. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Oh, is it that? Oh.
I know, I'm not
it's
gonna
only
see
one.
that. Yeah.
Did you have your wedding or something?
No, next year. I got you. Yeah, that's the big next thing.
Good job, Zach.
Miscommunication. Thank you for kind
Yeah, hey.
I didn't think that was going to be an implementation of this Zoom room thing, but This won't work.
Yeah, no pressure, but, just let me know when you're good to go.
As ready as I can be. This isn't working. It hasn't worked all night, but
Oh, you mean our online?
well, no, it's streaming. It's just streaming from my computer rather than like the video hasn't worked all night because
Okay, I got you.
this won't. So anyway, I've been trying to troubleshoot it, but we're getting all the recordings in, and I'm gonna put my computer up at the back so it records everything during the
Okay,
regular meeting. So anyway,
okay, so you're good to go?
yes, let me just.
Okay,
Yeah, we're good. We're recording.
all right. I would like to welcome everybody to the November 12th, 2024 regular city council meeting of Idaho Springs, and we'll call to order at 7:07. And before I do roll call, I just want to announce that Kate Carter will not be with us tonight. I'm not expecting her on Zoom. She had informed us of her back surgery, and I am told it went very well. And that was today. And with that, roll call, please.
Kate Collier, Lisa Manifold. Here. Scott Pennell.
Here.
Jim Clark. Janine Mariani. Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones.
Here.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Here. All please rise for Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. We have an agenda before us tonight. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve the agenda for the November 12th, 2024 meeting.
Thank you, Lisa. And do I have a second? Second from Scott. Any discussion of the agenda?
So we need to do an adjustment to the ordinance, or that's not until the ordinance? The resolution? Oh, never mind. It's not even on there, sorry.
Oh, it's all right. It's all right.
Forget what I said.
It's okay. Anything further on the agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Does anyone tonight feel they have a conflict of interest?
Sorry. I can't, vote on the IGA.
Thank you, Jerry. Anyone else? All right, we'll move on. Oh, sorry, Scott.
Just a question about that. Do we have enough votes then?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And do I have a motion on the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes from October 28th, 2024.
Thank you, Janine. And do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Scott. I actually do have one slight change with the minutes. It was probably more mumbling than usual last meeting, but the question came from Lisa Manifold regarding the revenue split with parking. And it was 50-50 with the revenue split, with 2/3 of the ticket revenue going to interstate because of the additional labor. So I did just want to make that clarification in the minutes. I'm sorry, Janine, would you make that motion as amended? Would you mind making that as amended? Well, you can get, they do approve the minutes as amended.
Okay, I move to approve the minutes as amended from
Thank you.
October 28th,
And
2024.
Scott?
Second.
All right, we have a first and a second. Any further discussion of the minutes? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please raise your right hand and signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, we have bills before us tonight. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the bills to November 12th, 2024.
Thank you, Jeremy. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Janine. And any discussion of the bills?
I just have a quick question on the Barracuda bins. Is the 50% that's due on the bear cans, is that from the grant that we got for the bear cans?
We won't apply for the grant. until after we've paid for the bear cans. So the grants, we are approved for the grant. We turn all that paperwork in afterwards, and the state will refund us that $50,000.
Paul, thank you. All right. Any further questions of the bills? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Lisa Manifold,
Yes.
Scott Pennell,
Yes.
Janine Mariani,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Jeremy Jones.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes. Next up, I want to thank everybody for their patience. We have public comment, and
I checked a minute ago, there was no one on the Zoom.
thank you. That was exactly what I was going to ask. And first up is Peggy Spinner. Welcome. Please come up.
Okay. Do you wanna go?
I'll,
I think Josh will could go.
And Josh, you're also
Someone
you're
was
welcome to
already
come up
been
together if
said,
you'd like.
so-
Sure. Do you guys like?
You can go to
Did
the
you
podium, right here.
And can you just state your name for the record, please?
You bet. Joshua Spinner, and I'm a partner with Scott and Sandy, my wife Peggy, with 345 Colorado Holdings, which most people know as the Blair Motel at the west end of town, one of the few in the west end of town. And when we bought the place, and we put a lot of money into it, worked it over, cleaned it up, got rid of bad elements. There was a lot in there. And we take a lot of pride in it. We do, Scott said we do 6-month inspections. We do quarterly inspections, and sometimes more often than that. When fire department, we need to go through with fire extinguishers or insurance person needs to come through. So we're through our units a lot. We provide, as far as safety goes, I agree that there have been places in town that were worse than slums. And they haven't, the one example was in 2022, there was a family with 3 young kids, 4, 3, and 2, and the wife was addicted to methamphetamine and she just had a baby. And that's how they were alerted to that situation when they came to check on that. We're the complete opposite of that. On the communal kitchen, I don't understand how that would help that situation. And that's probably my biggest gripe, if you will, because it would, if we put in $100,000 kitchen, Cindy was saying, what does it take to add a stove? It's not that at all. We have to redo all of our electrical, put a whole new kitchen. We have to take 1 or 2 of our units, probably 2 of our units, and turn that into a communal kitchen. So that'd be really tough for us. We have not raised rents with our insurance tripling in price. We have not raised rents with the water and sewer doubling essentially. And so, but we would have to raise rents if we need to put in a communal kitchen. It seems very evident to me listening to this whole thing today that there does need to be a 3rd category. And I was wondering why we're not a studio apartment, and it became clear when we don't meet the square footage requirement. Because our tenants, they have in a little kitchen setup, they have a refrigerator, and they have either a hot plate or a microwave. We don't like to allow both in our units. I didn't hear anything at all about 24-hour staffing. Is that still in the ordinance? Not one person brought that up tonight, but there being 24-hour staffing. So I don't know if the 24-hour staffing is an issue, but we would have to hire someone, and that might be $50,000 a year to hire someone. We are on call. All our tenants have 5 different phone numbers to call, a maintenance person and 5 owners. And so we can respond that way. It seems to me like there should be an adjustment. This would be the easiest thing to adjust the efficiency studio size down. And I think that we would fall into that category. We have, is that a timer?
Actually, you also are using Peggy's timer.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'll try not to use Scott and Sandy's. But we have talked to all of our tenants about putting in a communal grill area already. We want to do this to get grills away from our property, up close to the property. And none of them like that idea. And they've told us that they don't like, we've interviewed all of them, they don't like a communal kitchen idea either. They would rather just be able to cook with their setup that they have in their rooms right now. In fact, we polled each one of our tenants that we're able to get a hold of, and all of them were in favor of not having a communal kitchen. And I heard that just over and over and over again tonight. I just don't agree with that, but I agree all day long with inspections. We would welcome city inspections. We inspect ourselves, and I think that's going to avoid the problem that we had in 2022 with the 3 young kids. I think that's what everyone, I think that's probably how this all started. I haven't been here, but I'm sure that's how this became a hot topic. And the communal kitchen and 24-hour staffing, I don't think would fix those items. But we're all, again, all in favor of inspections. I think that would be good for the community, safety, health, and welfare. So thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
All right, Josh and Peggy, thank you both very much for coming in. I really appreciate it. That is all I have for public comment, unless somebody came in at the last second online or something. That's all that I had signed up. City Attorney Nick, did you have anything for us tonight?
No, I do not.
All right, thank you. Glad you came in early.
Yeah.
It was exciting and it was very helpful to have you here.
Mayor, could I ask for clarification?
Of course.
So on the ordinance that we discussed in the joint work session, we had the first reading, then we went with the joint session.
Yes.
Am I correct that the direction is that we'll continue on to second reading with the adjustments to the timing?
To the dates, yes.
The dates, okay. So we'll schedule that for our next, for second reading at the next council meeting on the 25th.
Yep.
Okay. That works for you?
Yeah.
All right.
Great. Okay.
I probably will not be here for that one.
Okay.
But as far as the changes?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
that's
All right.
fine.
Thank you.
All right. And next up, we have City Administrator.
Well, Mayor,
yes.
I think you're jumping ahead here a little bit because we got.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. Let's do a resolution.
Yeah.
So I jumped in there.
All right, sorry. I had Andy on the brain. All right, next up, we have resolution number 24. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 24, series 2024. A resolution approving the 2024 amended and restated intergovernmental agreement concerning the Clear Creek Fire Authority.
Thank you, Lisa. And do I have a second? Second from Scott. And any discussion?
I just want to say thank you to Andy and the people that have done this. I haven't always attended the meetings, but I watch them and listen to them a lot. This has been a slog. And I hate that the slog is not over, but I'm glad that we're not going to be left IGA-less.
Yes. I'm going to agree with that. Any further comments? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Lisa Manifold.
Yes.
Scott Pennell.
Yes.
Janine Mariani.
Yes.
Mayor Chuck Harmon.
Yes.
Thank
All right, we don't have any first readings, second readings. And now we're to Andy. Welcome back from vacation.
Thank you.
Very well deserved.
Thank you.
Just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything further to share with us tonight.
Not tonight, thank you.
All right. Next up, Dylan, thank you for your work tonight. Just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything further to share with us.
Nothing from me, thanks.
All right. Wonder, thank you very much. We are down about 1.18% in our sales for the month. We are up 2.36% for the year, which is not quite keeping up with inflation, but close. And I will just remind everybody that we do lag behind a couple months with our reports. So we do not know how the Virginia Canyon Mountain Bike Park is affecting us financially. My suspicions are that it is at least positive for the East End, but we should know something in the next month or two, and look forward to sharing that with you. Wonder, anything further to share with us tonight?
No, Mayor.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Mayor,
Yeah.
just on that issue, have you had some word of mouth from any businesses?
Yeah, I don't mind sharing the grilled cheese place said that he has never
Big
prepared.
B's.
That's it, and never prepared so many. I have also heard even from downtown businesses, they have noticed a marked increase in what they refer to as Viking wear. Folks coming in, right, with the gear on. So those are two that I could share with you now. And next up, Chief, another good report. Just wanted to make sure you didn't have anything further to share with us tonight.
No, I just would say thank you to the community that participated in just Halloween, and it was there were a lot of people in town, and
Yes.
And it was fun and safe event. So another successful Halloween.
Along those lines, Virginia Street was shut down from Virginia Canyon to 23rd. I can tell you personally, we probably had 3 times, if not 4 times, the trick or treaters. So it was very well received. And I believe most people participated. Paul, thank you for assisting in closing that street off.
Sure.
And open it back up.
I think you should do it again. I heard very good things, from people that came through.
Well, good.
It was resident initiated.
Yes,
Just residents down there asked to close the street for
completely.
Halloween. It was great.
Pretty huge. That's what I was wondering. Do you think they would probably make this more of an annual thing? Those same residents, maybe trying to make this more of an event?
I do think.
I believe so, just because it seemed to be very successful.
Good.
And I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't expand it maybe some more blocks or something.
Sure.
So anyways, it was very well received.
More places for kids to safely trick or treat is not a bad thing.
And
Because we get a lot of people from around Clay Creek County.
Yep, absolutely. And next up, we'll move to Public Works. Paul, thank you for your report. Want to see if you had anything further to share with us tonight?
Nope, just wanted to reiterate, I thank everybody that attended our open house for the new Public Works building. And again, I appreciate the community, and I really appreciate this council's, moving forward with getting that built, so.
Well, thank you, Paul. Good work steering that, getting that done. It is a wonderful facility. I really feel the citizens got their money's worth. And also, I have to say good job at dealing with what must have been somewhere between 20 to 24 inches of snow and still managing to get downtown open in the eastward location and clearing out those parking spaces. I thought that was a job very well done.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Next up, water facilities. Ed, thank you for your report and for your colorful images that you shared. So that looks good. Things are performing at least as good, if not better than expected with Matty Dam. So
they are. The reservoir we closed down. We're not discharging from the reservoir any longer. And I do have a secret picture in there of some damage to one of the signs. Actually, 2.
Oh.
So we're going to need to get a couple of new signs up there.
All right.
I think they said no motorized vehicles.
Once upon a time.
All right. We're good.
But yeah, the dam's working great.
Anything further then?
But I don't have anything else.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. Next up, Lou, welcome. And I want to thank you also. Your report was excellent, as always. Lots of good work out there.
I have good helpers. But we got all our projects done this year, which is the first time ever that I had planned on getting done. We have a lot of walls that we're going to need to repair in the next several years, so that's going to be a big thing. But I just want to thank the city crew for getting the headstones mounted and for all the signs, the section signs put up. And so we're in good shape this year. But anyway, thank you.
Well, good. Lou, just 1 second. I wanted to see, does council have any questions for Lou about the cemetery or anything? I just thought you put together a pretty extensive report. I just want to make sure you didn't have any questions on anything in there.
No, I would like to say thank you. I love seeing that you're doing this. I love seeing that you're getting us on fine grade, and you're keeping it up, because if it
Yeah,
doesn't get
I
kept
do
up.
that too, yeah.
Yeah, but if they don't get kept up, I visited plenty of cemeteries, and our cemetery is beautiful, so thank you.
And Lou, also, I happen to notice you didn't put your hours in. I can't even imagine what they might be.
I just put 100 plus because I.
Well, and you had two that ended up with a combination of about 220 hours between the two of them. I think one was 90 and the other was like 130.
Yeah,
That
Jerry.
is some really dedicated
Jerry Miller
volunteers.
and Dave Schuessler, they're up there with me all the time.
No, that's just great to
Yeah,
have.
couldn't
folks
do it
pitching in.
without them. Yeah, for sure.
Well, thank you. We can't thank you enough. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. I don't have anything tonight. I wanted to see, does anyone have anything for the good of the order before we adjourn?
Mayor, we will have a work session this coming Monday, just a work session. We got a few items, and then a regular meeting, a work session following.
Yep. So here in 6 days, on the 18th, we will have just a work session, and in 2 weeks, on the 24th, we will see a work session and a regular meeting. So with that, I want to thank everybody. We'll call it adjourned at 7:28.
This is a good one. You really didn't have to talk much during the work session. And you're out here by 7:30.
Hey, wonder before you leave.
Was this a pretty